welcome back to our latest installment of Get Busy with Bradley Zink. I am San Diego Children's book author and 2022 California governor candidate Bradley Zink. Um, Today's episode is going to be covering two hot topics in politics today, which is abortion rights and gun control laws. Before I get started, I'd like to say two things. One, I'd like to thank my sponsor, the Ronnie Lee Group, for sponsoring today's episode and also for contributing the music bite from their single Prisoner. Thank you, Ronnie Lee Group. I appreciate all of you guys' support. Second thing I'd like to state before we continue the episode is the views and opinions that are stated in this episode do not reflect that of my sponsors or producer. These are solely my personal opinions and beliefs, and again, do not reflect those that are supporting me in this show. So let's just get right into it. The first topic I'd like to discuss is abortion laws, abortion rights, specifically for the state of California, but it does pertain vastly to the entire U.S. as well. One of the issues I see with abortion laws is I don't think people are understanding the nature of why there is an issue with abortion to begin with. The government should be involved with making legislative decisions to benefit people, to protect people, to assist people. That's the whole point of having a government to begin with. And when you restrict people, especially from something that they are searching for, such as like whether it be medical cannabis, whether it be shelter, whether it be the need for something like abortion. When it's a need of a community, of a people, that's where the issue lies, is not what the particular subject is whether something should be politicized for political and financial gain. Abortion. First off, people probably would like to know what my opinion or stance is on abortion. As I stated, that when it comes to something like abortion, it should not be politicized. But for the nature of campaigning, I will state my personal opinions and beliefs, and then how things should be carried out in legislation. I personally am pro-choice, but with a caveat there. I believe abortion should be the last option considered, depending on the scenario as well. You have to understand that, it's not just, somebody doesn't want to have to deal with the responsibility of having a child. Many different factors come into play. It could be one from a stance of the financial ramifications of having a child and unable to financially support and care for a child. It could be somebody was unfortunately sexually assaulted, causing a pregnancy. Therefore, the thought of carrying a child from a assault to term could be both physically and especially mentally devastating to the individual. I believe that the role of government when it comes to something like abortion should be to, one, educate, to present all options that are available to an individual. Um, and three, and most importantly, not necessarily supporting, but allowing that individual to make their choice. Um, this is why this is such an interesting subject, because you have people that are either for or against abortion, and to politicize it is just one of the many tools in government that allow them to divide the people up. Um, when you divide a people up, you weaken them, you uh, remove the general consensus, if you will. You have, you know, you're either for or against. And unfortunately, with the money that's made in the lobbying of such things like abortion laws or gun control, which we'll address next, um, when there's money for the government to be made, they tend to exploit issues that truly should not be used for political gain, and for um, people take something like abortion very personal. It's an emotional thing, and I do not feel that the government should exploit um, utilizing something that's so personal. Um, to give you an example of how politicized abortion has become, let me just bring up a article I was reading earlier this morning. Um, in 2021, state legislatures in the U.S. set an alarming record of 108 abortion restrictions enacted in 19 states. You have, just bear with me for a moment here. You have blue states enact new laws to create abortion havens. And the next article, states are scrambling to restrict abortion access. Um, to show how the two-party political system divides people up, you have the Democrat Party that is for abortion, and the followers of the Democrat Party that support the Democrats are typically the ones that also are for supporting abortion rights. And on the flip side of the coin, you have the red states, or the Republicans, where they are adamantly against abortion rights, and therefore their states seem to vote accordingly. Um, One of the reasons why, like with gun control, with homeless issue, with cannabis industry, with abortion rights, um, the way that you can see that it's all for political gain and not for actually the benefit of the people in general is the fact that, um, like I stated, there's a lot of lobbying money to be made off of it. Excuse me for a moment. As well as the fact that, like I stated, it splits the vote and the people up. Um, a great example that's currently affecting us is with the global pandemic of COVID. You also see a similar divide in the people of whether a vaccine mandate should be um, made or not, to mandate everybody having to have a COVID vaccine. Again, this is a medical, a public health issue. Um, the role of the government shouldn't decide what medical and health things should be legal or not, should be mandated or not. What the government's role should be is one, having all the information available for an individual to make their own choice. Two, supporting and enabling the person to follow through with what choice they decide. Um, Let me say this here. Bear with me. to be able to truly deal with a hot topic issue like this, I believe that the perception of why the legislation is passed needs to be addressed and changed. Um, Everybody wants to be able to have the right to choose what they do in life and to have the government either restrict or dictate what should be decided or what choices you have available. um, Takes away from the whole democratic approach of to benefit the people, to support the people. Um, like I said, I'm not a supporter of abortion. I believe that there are many options available out there. I do not believe that opinion or personal belief should play a role when deciding um, something that has to do with health, medical. Um, that is something that the state and the federal government should support, make available, not only the procedures themselves, but also information, alternative um, choices. If someone is looking into um, or needing to make that choice of whether or not to have an abortion, if it's a financial thing, then the state and federal government should assist the individual with um, options to be able to afford to care for a child. If it is a instance of, like I said, a sexual assault causing a pregnancy, then the state and the federal government should support that individual's decision of how they would like to progress. Like I said, this is a very sensitive subject that truly shouldn't be politicized, especially one reason why my my opinion is just an opinion, and it should not be taken as a law or how things should or should not be, is the simple fact that well, the blatant obvious, I'm a male, that I would never have to be the individual that would have to be in a situation where I would be the one making that choice. Granted, um, my partner could have that scenario come into play, but myself as a male, um, and not being the one who would have to make such a life-altering choice, it shouldn't come down to my opinion or my beliefs. Um, and when you look in politics today, and with them grossly underrepresented by women in politics, you know, something like a 5-to-1 ratio of male to female politicians in elected office. Um, Maybe the ones that are currently in power are not the right ones to be deciding for the masses which way things should go when it comes to abortion, seeing as how a guy wouldn't be the one that would have to make that final and ultimate decision. Um, Again, I believe that it should be something like that. That choice should be left up to the individual, um, and that the government's only true role should be in um, assisting that individual with all the options, all the information available, and then supporting that individual in the decisions that they make. Um, just like politicians, once elections happen and are finished, they have to accept the decisions that the people make. Anyway, let's get on to our next subject now, gun control laws. Excuse me for a moment. Like abortion, cannabis industry, um, gun control laws is another political hot topic. With the ever increasing rise in violence, occurring with guns, school shootings, mass shootings we've seen an uptick in just the last 3 to 5 years of mass shootings in the United States and in California. You can understand a need to necessitate enacting legislation to curb this. First off, I am a supporter of the Second Amendment, the right to bear arms. I personally have a shotgun that I've purchased years ago for home protection. Some may agree or disagree on owning a weapon, if you will. Again, on political hot topics, it seems to come down to one's personal beliefs and how they feel, whether they're for or against an issue. Politicians prey on that and thus make it easier to split up the people in when it comes to trying to get elected. You have one party that is adamantly for protecting our Second Amendment rights. You have another party that's more strict approach to gun control laws. Mainly for the fact of the votes. You go after people that are like-minded. You feed them the rhetoric that they want to hear to gain their support to have them vote for you. With the ever-increasing violence that we see daily on the news with gun violence, you can understand that there is an issue and it needs to be addressed. Hence the reason why different states enact different gun control laws. California being the most strict, has the most strict gun control laws in the country. But doesn't necessarily have the best statistics when it comes to safety in the state with the current gun control laws. One example is concealed carry. In the state of California, you don't have that. In the state of, we'll say, Texas, concealed carry is an option, and you see in Texas a lot higher number of gun-related violence compared to California. But on the flip side, another state that has very strict gun control laws is Hawaii. Hawaii also happens to have a concealed carry option, and they have even lower rate of gun violence in the state of Hawaii. Now, granted, we also are much more overpopulated than the state of Hawaii, which can skew the numbers slightly when it comes to statistics. But stricter gun laws doesn't necessarily dictate to a safer society. Um, Different legislation that they try to address these laws, ghost gun, um, that I can completely support the restriction of ghost gun and ghost gun parts. Ghost guns and ghost gun parts are basically either fully functional guns or parts to complete the assembly of a gun for operation that is not directly made and sold by a licensed manufacturer or distributor, um, not going through the strict federal testing standards to be able to be a licensed distributor. Um, that's where the safety issue comes in, is not being able to um, verify the proper functionality of either the weapon or the parts that are produced, thus causing the ability for either injury because of a improper manufacturing process, um, due to the fact that it's not a legitimate licensed distributor. Therefore, you're able to easily obtain these parts or guns more easily, less detected by the state or federal government, therefore causing an uptick in crime. LA County Sheriff's Department stated how the main issue with gun violence in the state is specifically from the dramatic increase of ghost gun and ghost gun parts that are being shipped and sold in the state of California today. I believe that the thing that needs to be truly addressed to help curb the dramatic uptick in gun violence is um, the state of California would need to uh, somehow devise a way to cut off the ability to either sell, to ship to into the state um, any ghost gun parts that are not from a licensed manufacturer or distributor. Um, Another issue, especially in the state of California, is how they address assault rifles. I can understand from one side that you you know, like I said, I have a shotgun as personal protection for my home and my family. Do you really need a semi-automatic assault rifle with a 100-round banana clip? Um, when you have something such as that type of weaponry, you can understand how the proponents against don't feel that that would be your typical go-to home safety weapon. Um, Instead of looking at the actual individual weapons themselves and classifying how this should be illegal, this should is okay. What needs to be addressed is one, how guns are obtained; two, how are they tracked, um, and to address the safety thing. Three, uh, the education of the person that's obtaining these guns. Um, I believe that what we should do is, if a individual wants to have a type of weapon like that, um, I believe that one, you should have it at least registered to the state that you live in, um, just so you have a local database of those key weapons in the system that can then be traced back in case any incidents occur with such weapons. Um, Two, instead of making it illegal to have to possess or obtain these, um, I believe what the state and even the federal government should address is a permit-like system. If you want to be able to obtain such a gun, one, you should file the necessary paperwork for it. Two, I believe that the individuals should be properly trained with um, such type of weaponry, um, to be educated on the functionality of it as well as the purpose of it. That way, that would lessen the chances of, incidences, we'd say. Um, Second. To make something, when you restrict the access to something, you literally will increase the desire for these as well. Great example is like alcohol. We'll say in California, you're able to go into an Albertsons up until 2 o'clock in the morning and purchase a bottle of tequila if you want. Whereas another state like Texas, um, some counties are dry counties and you're unable to purchase alcohol at all. Some you're able to purchase only beer and wine. Some you're able to purchase hard alcohol only until 10 p.m. Um, with gun restriction, you're going to have a split in people's perception of it. So educating is, I think, a key to be able to getting not only the knowledge necessary to be able to wield such power as having, a gun, um, understanding reasons for wanting or needing to have home protection. Pardon me. One of the laws that or legislation pieces that I think is grossly a gross approach to restriction is there's a push for trying to enable people to sue the manufacturer um, of a weapon that's used in a shooting. The only thing that I can address with that as a logical analogy to look at would be looking at the car industry. Someone gets intoxicated, plows through a crowd of protesters in front of a school, say, and kills 10 people. With the legislation that they're trying to pass for guns, to be able to sue the manufacturer, that would be the same as in the car industry. That person that just plowed through a crowd of protesters, the families would have the right to be able to sue Mitsubishi because that was the manufacturer of the car that person was driving. That's not the approach that works. Why they would try to push such a legislation through is that to get that knee-jerk reaction from the voters, to tug at those heartstrings and to make you vote not because you believe that that's a proper way to address gun violence. It makes you feel though that, oh, here's an extreme method and this will help curb the uptick in gun violence that we see in America today. Through proper education, through a proper registration system, and through proper training. Those are the keys, I believe, into curbing the gun violence. And on a personal note, education starts at home. I have a 13-year-old child. He likes to play some games that do have gun violence and shooting in them, which can glorify the whole process. The education should start at home with the explaining of what the purpose of a gun is, the necessities for having one, and the responsibilities that one would have in owning a weapon. Again, these are my views and my personal opinions and don't reflect those of my sponsor or my producer. But people need to stop addressing that the approach of restriction is the way to reduce violence in California and in America today. Like I said, the three keys would be the proper registration process, the education process, training process, and starting at home with the education process. Anyway, those are my two feelings on abortion and gun control laws. Again, I'd like to thank today's sponsor, the Ronnie Lee Group, and there we go, and Big D's Little Studio, my producer. I greatly appreciate everything and all the support that you guys do for me. That's going to be all for today's episode. Next week, we're going to take a look at the governor election of 2022 here in California, the lack of mainstream media coverage, the fact that there hasn't been any debates or anything up until this point, 6 weeks before the primaries, and what needs to be addressed to make this an actual legitimate looking election as opposed to what we're seeing today. I thank you all for tuning in to today's episode and look forward to seeing you all with our next episode. Have a wonderful day.